with Miss Danielle, who is already, I could say in the building. I could say in the building, I wonder. So let me say good morning to Miss Danielle and Miss Peters, who is her guest today, who is going to take you straight until 11:45. So I'm handing you over now to Miss Danielle and Miss Peters. Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having us. We're fine. Glad to be back this morning.
Recording in progress.
It's Monday morning, bright and early.
Bright. Well, it's not so bright and early anymore, eh? It's close to lunchtime.
It's still morning. It's still morning. All right. So welcome and good morning to our listeners, and welcome to Let's Talk Legal, your legal information and education series, brought to you by DL Daniel and Associates Limited. This Monday morning, we are here live straight out of the firm this morning. I am joined here with the lovely Keisha Peters. Good morning, Keisha.
Good morning, Shakila. So glad to be with you all this morning. And good morning to all the viewers listening in. I hope that we have a beautiful session this morning as we talk all things legal.
Yes. Very interested. We want to remind our listeners that we are located at number 1 Taylor Street and Arbuta Avenue in Woodbrook, and numbers to call us 769-6410, cell number 769-6410 to call after the program, or you can call the office line at 241-3772, 241-3772 anytime throughout the program, or call us on air. All right, so Keisha, this morning we're talking about land law, land and property. Very, very dear to me. I'm very excited.
Yes, so this morning we're discussing as a brief introduction, we could say, about land law in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's such an important topic, I think, that we're dealing with, especially where we have so much fraudulent transactions happening, or that can happen within our society, that deals with land. And oftentimes it stems from persons' lack of knowledge when they're entering into these transactions. So hopefully this morning we can assist somebody in making a better choice.
Yes, education is power. And that is the purpose of these segments, to provide basic legal, administrative education and information to the average member of the public. So Keisha, I remember last Friday in the office, we were talking and there were so many interesting cases that came in, and we were discussing, you mentioned something there, lack of information has resulted in a lot of persons being victim to land management fraud. Right? Or land fraud, land registration fraud, not understanding what they need to look for in lands, not doing proper title searches, not understanding the different ways land title is registered in Trinidad and Tobago. Before we go on all of that, let's just start from the very beginning, because today's segment is supposed to be part 1 of an introductory to property law, which is where the ownership of land falls under property law, right? So if we were to start with, discussing property law first, can we start with defining what property is, and explain to the listeners, if there is legislation, statute, what governs property in law in Trinidad and Tobago?
All right. So if it is that we're supposed to start from the very, very, very beginning, we need to understand that in Trinidad and Tobago, our laws, a lot of our laws, including our land laws, were derived from the English common law, which were judicial precedents and customs that existed in the UK at that time, rather than their statutes. And as we were colonized, those colonizers, the settlers, would have brought their systems to the Commonwealth Caribbean, including Trinidad and Tobago. So if we are to narrow those particular rules or the common law in relation to land, land does not just mean the ground. that you are occupying. So first we need to understand that it encompasses or it includes everything that is attached to the land. Correct. And I think you just asked as well if there's a definition of property. Now, yes, there is. And this is important for our listeners to learn. And if you don't remember anything that I say today, remember that there is a definition for property. And generally, property can be classified into two main categories. We have personal property and we have real property. So many people may be familiar with those terms, personal and real, but they carry actual legal definitions when we're dealing with it in land law. So you say, well, my land is personal to me. While that may be true, it does not qualify as personal property. And so personal property, Shakila, is anything that you can move. Right? So you can move your jewelry, you can move your car. Those things are movable. It's subject to ownership, except land. Real property, on the other hand. So the basic classifications are personal property and real property. Real property cannot be moved at all. It encompasses the land and anything that is attached to the land. All right. So that is the basic definition then that for you to understand how property is defined and how it is classified in law.
Right. So this morning we are going to be talking about real property. We're not going to be talking about personal property because there are different types of property, as you would have mentioned. We're talking about real property, and as it relates to, that's where you get real estate from as well too, right?
Correct.
So we're talking about real property here today, and I love that you said that land is not just the ground, but it encompasses everything attached to it, which brings us to the topic for today: fixtures versus chattel. What are they, and how does it relate to the attachment of land? And also, very importantly, because as I said, my comfort really is in land law. I do a lot of legal title research, consulting, etc. And what is often also included and has to be mentioned in the recital, and not the schedule, but a part of it, I can't remember the section that speaks about the minerals in the land as well. If you have covenants and restrictions, right, it also speaks of, so if I dig my land and there's oil at the bottom, or I find gold, etc., there is provisions in the title document that speaks of not just the ground, but whatever is in the ground, attached to the ground, forming part. Right? Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So when we talk about attached to the land, that's an important phrase, or it's an important conversation that people in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think globally, they have to have, because you need to understand what it means when something is attached to the land. And generally, we differentiate by using two words. We have fixtures and we have chattels. Mm-hmm. So fixtures are anything that is permanently attached, or for lack of a better word, fixed. So fixtures are fixed to the land, all right? And once they are permanently attached, they become part of the property. So let's say, for instance, that you don't own the property, Shakila, and you are renting this land. And you put a structure on this land that is permanently attached, so much so that it becomes a fixture. Mm-hmm. Once it becomes a fixture, then it will automatically pass to the owner of the land. All right? And so that's important for our listeners to understand. So you can't go and put permanent concrete structures and then decide you want to dig it up and damage. No. From the time this thing becomes a fixture, then it goes with the land. And I remember I was talking to a friend this morning, and I was telling her, I said, my granny used to say a long time, houses go with land. So you can't, you have to be very, very careful, especially if it is that you are occupying land that does not belong to you.
Yes.
So on the other hand, a chattel is something that you can move. It's movable objects. They don't pass with the land. So you like flowers, you put down your flower pots. Those things are just rested on the land. They're chattels. They can be moved very easily. And a simple way that I remember it is anything that you can move without causing any permanent damage to the property. Yeah, those things are classified as chattels. But from the time that you have to cause some kind of major damage to the property, then what you would have done was to put a fixture. And while it might enrich the owner's property, you are not allowed to remove it in such a way that will cause permanent damage, because then you might end up being sued for the damages. All right.
So I'm loving this. I'm loving this, Keisha. I'm loving the definition. I'm hoping our listeners are benefiting from it, because I think you're taking a very simple approach to explaining a very critical and crucial part of land law and property law, fixtures and chattel. And it's also something to be considered when we reach the topic of lease. There are a lot of parts to this discussion. This segment has to be broken down. I know we will eventually reach leases and tenants and landlord, etc. But fixtures and chattels are also a feature of leases and rental agreements that sometimes have a little issue there in terms of the damage done by fixtures, etc. So just to recap what Ms. Peters would have mentioned this morning, listeners, we would have discussed fixtures and chattel as it results to property and land law. She would have defined that fixtures, as the name would suggest, is fixed to the land, is attached in such a way that when removed would cause significant damage, right? And chattel is anything easily removable from the land, and if you need to go, you can go with it. Now, long ago, there are, I get a lot of sometimes clients coming when they have to do a search, and they would recognize that, they were sold. They will give one the land as a lease for like 30 years, 27 years, etc. But then they have a chattel deed. So we spoke about fixtures and chattel. And I know that there are some of our listeners out here who may be in possession of a chattel deed. And they may go by an attorney, and the attorney say this is a chattel house. And they look at you confused, because you just gave an example of chattel being flower pots, right? Very, very nice and simple. But in the real context, Keisha, we do know that chattel deeds exist and there are chattel houses. How would you simply explain that concept for them to understand the intention of the law when it speaks of chattel houses and chattel deeds?
All right, Shakila, I'm actually really, really happy that you brought that up. But for our listeners to understand the concept of a chattel house, especially if they are in possession of a chattel deed, and you're thinking, well, what nonsense Ms. Peters is talking about? I can't just pick up my house and go with it. So what we need to understand is that we need to go back in order to come to the present. So historically in Trinidad and Tobago, many persons would have built their homes on lands that on lands that were not their own. So they were renting the lands. All right. So before, a chattel house was something that was built out of wood. It was a wooden structure that you could historically pick up and move. So there were no fixed foundations on it. All right. And this is a concept that I learned, and I want to share something with you and our readers this morning. I learned this when I started studying law, and I said, okay, good, I understand. All right, you pick up your house and move. I have never seen anybody move their house on a flatbed and gone with it until I was in Dominica in December of 2018. And I was staying in this area And I just looked outside Shikila, and there was an entire wooden house on the back of a flatbed truck going up the road like nobody's business. And I felt like, in the phrase, never see, come see. Yeah. I scream and shout for everybody in the house to come and see this thing, because they were literally moving with the house. And historically, that is what a chattel house was. It was capable of being moved from one spot to the other. But as time progressed in Trinidad and Tobago, persons started becoming a little more bolder, I would say, with their construction of the houses. Yes. So we moved from board to concrete. Then we have iron and steel. And so the differentiation between the normal chattel that we historically knew and what operates today is, it's hard to distinguish, because you cannot pick up a house which has concrete foundations and block work and just move it to another location. However, despite that fact, we need the essence of the law or the legal parameters have not changed in the sense that you still do not own the land upon which your structure lies. And because the land may very well be rented land, you have to execute what we call a chattel deed. So your ownership is literally just for the house and not the land.
Very, very important part of this discussion, because I know that there are listeners out here who would be in possession of a chattel deed. And I know that is a very, very common misunderstanding and difficulty to understand that. But the land, and for many, and listen, I'm talking about even in the Woodbrook area where we are here at the office. There are lots of lands here that are still Crown lands, or you belonging to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They never sell the lands, they rent the lands, and essentially a lot of the houses in Woodbrook are chattel, right? And even though, and I liked what you said there, even though in reality now, the practice with property law has been okay, there's been an allowance for a foundation to be steel, etc., and it's not traditionally chattel. It's the law, the principle of the law still follows, and the ownership is still relative to specifically the house alone.
Correct.
The interest, the right, the title, the ownership is to the house. It does not go to the land because you want a concrete foundation, because you have fixed your chattel house to the land.
Correct.
You say, well, it's house and land. That is not the way the law works. All right. So you need to understand what, and most importantly, Keisha, as well, I want them to understand, it does not mean that you can sell the house and the land. Because sometimes people believe once they are in possession of a deed, it is my land. Yeah, my name is on the papers. But your name could be on the papers, but how? In what manner? To what extent? It does your ownership speak to, and what are the covenants? And I think in a later segment I want us to actually go through a deed, the parts of it, the covenants, restrictions, etc., and what that means to your ownership, and by extension what you can do after with it in terms of transactions permitted.
That would be lovely, but what we notice as well in practice is a lot of persons, Shakila, has what we call the COCs, or certificates of comfort from the government. They build their houses on the property, and then sometimes you go on social media, you pick up the papers, and these persons are purporting to sell
Yes.
the property. And when I use the word property, I'm using the word property to talk about the real property in its fullest sense, meaning the house and the land. Well, my daddy and my granny and my who and so occupy the property for so long, but that does not translate to ownership.
And Keisha, they will call it a deed of comfort. I remember.
Correct.
It's our Facebook page posted something on that, and the crowd went mad. We would have said colloquially, we say deed of comfort, but nothing such as a deed of comfort exists in law.
That's correct.
There is no such thing as a deed of comfort, and a certificate of comfort is not transferable. And we will go into that in a later segment, because I know that is
that's a hot topic.
A hot topic. So now, Keisha, we reached the point of our program that we're going to invite calls. We're going to invite our callers. I had so much fun with this topic. As you can see, I light up with land law. I love it a lot. Because I think it's so very important. It's very practical, and it's something that we have a lot of difficulty with in Trinidad, and even more so in Tobago. When I hear a call for land in Tobago, I start to sweat. And because that is a kettle of its own, a different kettle of fish in terms of registration process and title, the historical issues that Tobago has with land registration and title. So now we want to invite our callers. Could you tell us, Mr. Google, what are the numbers they can call to discuss and speak with us this morning?
All right. So the numbers again are 342-0081, 342-0081, 771-1791, 771-1791, and 466-5391, 466-5391. We have a caller already on the line.
All right. I know that this morning with land. I know. Hello, caller. Good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk Legal.
All right. Hold on. Hello, morning, caller. Caller. Hello. Hold on, huh? Yeah, hello, morning. Caller. I don't know what's happening there. Let me take this other caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hi. Morning.
Good morning, caller. You're on.
All right. Well, good morning to the
Good morning, caller.
I need to get some information from the seller of my land, right? She said, let her apply for status of land. I want to know what is the meaning of the status of land in town country.
Okay.
All right.
So I think the caller said he was doing something with the seller of a land, and they spoke of what is the status of the land in relation to town and country.
Yes.
Status of the land, yes. They want me. They want the seller of the land to me to apply for status of land to town and country before I purchase the land. What is the meaning of a status of land?
Okay.
All right, so just hold on. We have another caller. Just hold, please.
All right,
Thanks very much, caller.
Question. Keisha, let's take on our question. High status of land.
Are you there?
Yes, we're here, caller.
Right. Could the lady provide a phone number for her? The one who said that she gets so enthusiastic about, land matters and stuff like that. Can she provide a number to reach her, please?
All right, they will provide a number at the end of the program or during the course of the program.
Thank you very much.
All
Ladies, keep up the good work.
Thank you. We'll try. You have a next call on the line?
No, not as yet.
Okay, good. That's right. All right, Keisha. So you wanna answer that question? Remember, we're not giving advice. We're just giving basic information.
Yeah. So let me be clear. I'm not here giving any legal advice on the radio this morning. Notwithstanding that, it's very important when you're entering into a property transaction for you to know the status of the land with town and country, which is what this caller wants clarified this morning. So basically, we have residential, we have agricultural, and we have property that is classified as commercial land. So it depends on what you are buying the land to do. You want to know what the status of your land is. Now, you have a lot of persons selling agricultural land for residential use. Now, you need to be able to determine this, again, for you to use your phrase, the status or how your land is classified. Because if you buy agricultural land, but you fully intend to build a house on it, then you're going to end up with some kind of problems when you have to get your proper approvals, your building plan approvals, and those things, because your property was not classified for the use in which you intend it to be. Also, you're looking at having to pay maybe about 7% of the value for stamp duty, because you may not have, the necessary approvals for what you want it to be. So it is important, ladies and gentlemen, callers this morning, that you do know the status of the land that you are purchasing. So you need to know whether or not it's agricultural, whether or not it's residential, and whether or not it is commercial. All right, so I hope that answers your question, caller, this morning.
And if I might also add, in terms of status of land and the classification of it, the purpose of it, it's also for developers. I've seen some persons, they intend to buy land, they get it at a really good price, but they know it's agricultural land, no tongue and country approval, but then you would like to subdivide the lands to build, you want 10 lots to make a development. That's not how that works, right? So the status of the land, tongue and country approvals, etc., speaks of the purpose that the land can be used for, as well as how you can sell it thereafter when you have acquired the lands. All right?
All right. We have
So it's very
caller.
important to do switches. We have the next caller.
Yes. Hello,
All
good
right.
morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Hi, morning.
Yes, morning. I was wondering, could someone who builds a fixture on leased land, if they do decide to sell, what exactly would they be selling? Is it only the concrete house fixture to the person, or would it also include the lease agreement they would have had with the owner of the land? So could all of that be sold? The lease agreement for the land as well as the house itself?
All right. Thank you very much. Just take note of that question. We have another caller holding. Hello, good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning. And to that, I look forward for that last question from that last lady. But I have one question. As you decided with the subdivision and the approval the person asked about. So in Arangwes where I live, there's property for sale, but it was considered agricultural land. And I'm seeing people purchasing it and putting up 3-story apartment building and renting them out. So I'm wondering, if I was to purchase this, could I... How do they get this approval in order to do such? Or is it just that they have the money and capable of doing that? Or could I go to the bank and say I buy a piece of land? Because to me, this is what you're saying to me, right? If I buy a piece of agricultural land and go to the bank, I cannot get a mortgage on that to build a house. But in my community, I'm seeing that going on. So I'm wondering, how is that possible? Is it because they just have the funds? And how doesn't tongue and country approval come and stop these people from putting up these things? So thank you very much, ma'am. I look forward to the lady's question now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. Ooh, I know that this morning, these calls, I know. We'll be taking it down. Google, do we have another caller? Or could we start answering?
No, you don't.
Okay, good. So the first question in terms of what can be sold, the caller would have asked in terms of if the seller has a lease. Right? And leases, we know the most important feature of a lease is that it has a term, meaning that there's a limit on the amount of years that you would have this interest. And on the lease, the seller knows the house. I'm not sure if there were 2 different deeds, but I think that the seller is attempting to sell the house and land on
Yeah. So, all right. So she's kind of precursoring some of our future segments where we deal with freehold property and leasehold property, but that's fine.
Yes.
So for callers that are listening and are in similar situations, what we need to understand firstly, and I'm going to be as brief as I can in relation to leasehold, is that you cannot sell a leasehold. All right? The property does not belong to you, so you cannot sell it. What you can do is assign your lease to someone else. And even in so doing, the terms by which you can assign that lease is often governed by the lease itself. You oftentimes have to get the consent of the lessor, which would be the owner of the property, because it's the owner of the property that will give you a lease. And as Shakila was saying, an important aspect of a lease is that it's for a term of years. So let's say that you had a lease for 199 years. And so from the date that the lease was executed, let's say 190 years has passed, then all you can assign with consent is 9 years, because it's the remaining portion of the lease. Now, as it relates to the chattel house or the fixture that you would have built, of course you can do a chattel deed for the house. You own the house, but you do not own the land upon which it stands.
Yes.
And so as it relates to the lease, there are things that you would have to do. You'd have to get the consent of the lessor to assign the lease. You need to understand that it's only the remaining term of years that you are able to assign. And when if you get the consent, which is not usually unreasonably withheld, all right, when you get the consent, even then, what you are transferring, and so this is important for purchasers who are going into leasehold agreements, you need to understand that what is being transferred would be that chattel house, you know. You don't get the land.
Yeah. Keisha, oh gosh, this topic is like, because we are out of time.
Oh my gosh.
I
wanted to address that last question.
Okay, real quick. So we are out of time. Listen, as usual, we had so much fun, but feel free to call us. You can reach us at 769-6410. That number again, 769-6410, or the office number 241-3772. 241-3772. Call us to speak with us, get more answers. We are out of time. But thanks for being here with us. Join us next week, Monday, where we'll continue with land law. And then join us on Thursday, where we're going to have Dr. Jamil Broom back with us, speaking about employment and labor law. The callers who call about that, we're going to call you guys today about the employee relation issues. We did not forget you all. We had a very busy weekend. Thanks for joining Let's Talk Legal. Remember to call us after the program, 769-6410, 769-6410, or 241-3772, 241-3772. Thank you so much, Keisha, for being here. Thanks for being part of the team. On behalf of all of us here at Dear Diane Associates, we say thanks for joining us, and Let's Talk Legal, democratizing law. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
The official station that defends the nation. Broadcasting from Trinidad to the world. The Street919FM.com. Entertainment, information, conversation. All on Street 91.9 FM. The official station that defends the nation.
All right, so we want to thank Miss Danielle and Miss Peters for being with us today.
We lift his name.
Let's Talk Legal on the Street 919 FM. Also, we want to thank Miss Nicole Huggins and Associates for being with us today too. So we're getting ready to go for the news, and then we're going to come back and hear from you.
The name of Jesus is lifted high. Lifted high, lifted high. The name of Jesus lifted high. In this place, the name of Jesus. Let's lift it together. Lifted high, the name of Jesus. In this place. be saved. Sons and daughters shall be saved in this place. Sons and daughters shall be saved. Come on and say, shall be. Sons and daughters shall be saved in this place. Put your hands together. Say, hallelujah, we bless your name. Release your glory on us now, on us now, on us now. Release your glory on us now in this place. Say, release your glory. Release your glory on us now. Yes, Lord. On us now. On us. Release your glory. Release your glory on us in this place. Come on, everybody. Everybody say, release. 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 Release in this place. Hey, say release. Say your glory. Release your power. Release your healing in this place. Hey, say release your glory. Your glory. Your glory. Your glory. Your glory in this place. Open up your mouth and shout. I hear the sound of an army arising. I hear the sound of an army arising. I hear the sound of an army arising in there.